7 questions wedding videographers demand answers for on this edition of The DV Show.
We're on a mission to rid the world of bad video.
Bye-bye.
This is The DV Show.
Target in range.
Bad video sucks.
Welcome to this edition of the DV Show podcast. Brian is my name. Glad you can join us for this edition. We have all sorts of video-related questions delivered to us in various ways: email, voice, and when we're live, just hanging out on social media apps. So we compiled some great questions from wedding videographers for this week's podcast. They have some pressing issues that need attention, so we decided to invite 2 professionals to help with some of the answers. So Mark and Patricia, welcome to the DV Show. Let's get into our first question from email to start things off. The first question is, what is the state of wedding videography right now, especially after the pandemic?
Well, if you set aside the issues with the economy, wedding videography has still been trying to kind of get their foothold as far as being one of the must-have vendors for a bride. And so, the national studies say around, about 1/3 of weddings have a professional wedding videographer. So there's definitely a lot of room to gain in the market share. Then with the economy coming around, a lot of people are in question. Is this a good time to get into it? Is it not? Brides are still getting married. Brides still want to have their memories for the future. And I've even seen some talks on internet forums of brides kind of reevaluating, what's my priorities for this wedding? And, when you look at all the things a bride can spend her money on, a lot of those things are there for that day and then gone. Where, your rings, your photography, your videography are the things that you get to keep. And so we're really looking forward to brides just taking a good close look at their budget and trying to figure out what is really important within this budget. And so we see, definitely future growth within wedding videography, despite the uncertain economic times that are ahead.
All right, we'll take another question from email to get things started. Documentary-style wedding videos, are they in vogue?
I think they're very much in vogue. It seems to be the hot thing with videographers right now is to do it more documentary, more live audio, which I think is highly important. Audio so separates us from the photography world. And I think that is very much, yes, in vogue in the videography world and very much appreciated by brides.
So really what this means is that they're on their way out, basically, these documentary style, or are they becoming more popular?
No, I
is what
think
you're saying?
They're on their way in. Well, I think really they're in, and I think as far as, it gets very tricky in the fact of what do you term as documentary? You know what I mean? Like, do you term old style, like what people have been doing for the last 10 years as far as just documenting the day in, let's say, A-B rolling the ceremony and not removing any excess, or therefore what I consider to be documentary would be, or what we would consider in vogue documentary, would be a lot of live audio. Do you want to chime in here and help me out?
Just a lot of real time, not a highly produced production, not a lot of effects, not a lot of slow motion, a lot of real time. And more so kind of the way the day happened, instead of, creating more of a, just a highly enhanced production.
Right. Because a lot of people would term like the cinematic and the documentary. The cinematic being a little bit more highly produced. For us personally, I don't like the true documentaries, but we kind of take a more blended approach. I don't believe in throwing out the baby with the bathwater, and so while we did not depart from slow motion, maybe we've backed off the amount that we use. We still do use it, but I think there's just can be a more balanced approach to the whole, documentary versus cinematic presentation.
Some great answers coming from the both of you. Thank you very much. Here's another one from email. Why do wedding videographers or videographers in general wear black? I'm assuming that it's a uniform. Why do they wear only black?
Generally speaking, we wear black, all black, because we blend in more. But that's generally speaking. We've also done weddings on the beach. And in that instance, I did ask the bride, what would the groom be wearing? And she said he'll be wearing khaki pants and a white shirt. And so that immediately told us, well, if Mark wears all black and he stands back there behind the groomsmen, guess what you're going to see? This man in all black. So he didn't. He wore khaki pants and a white top that looks a lot like them. And he blended, being behind them, he kind of blended in, and you don't really notice him per se.
Right.
But I think that it's important, as a professional, you do want to blend in and be in the background, and you don't, want to be wearing bright colored clothes or, even the white shirt. And I noticed in the pictures from the bride that had, posted the letter, her videographer did wear. She mentioned when he came to her hotel room, he had on a jacket, but then he removed it. And most of the day, it looks like he went in his white shirt and probably black pants. And so that did make him stand out a lot, being in that white shirt. So in that instance, he would have been better had he been in all black.
Well, and another goal that I have is when I'm at a wedding ceremony, wedding reception, whatever the case is, when I set my camera down, I want to be able to blend in like I was just a guest attending. And so, most of our weddings, the guys will wear jackets, suits, ties. And so, I am always going to have my jacket on. So, I just blend in as a guest. Some people say, you need to go all black. But I've seen some videographers go all black, but it may be, black slacks and just a black short sleeve polo shirt. If all the other guests are wearing suits and it's more formal, you're going to stand out if you're just wearing, a short sleeve polo shirt. And so, I always go black slacks, black shirt, and a black jacket. And then, depending on the circumstances, if it's in August and a lot of the guys are pulling the jackets off, I will pull my jacket off. But I have, the ability to kind of blend in and just look like I'm one of the guests if I do happen to set my camera down.
Right. I mean, I'm reading this letter. I mean, I don't blame her, and maybe calling her Bridezilla is the wrong way to go. I mean, she really got what she paid for. You convinced me of that already. Do you think there was a lack of communication here between the bride and the videographer? I mean, she says, took off your dark coat to reveal a gleaming starch white shirt. At that moment, I knew that you were not skilled or experienced videographer. I mean, should have been there some kind of communication beforehand on what was going on and what to expect?
I think beforehand is the absolute best. And that's why, as a videographer, if she's not asking you what you're going to be wearing, then I would ask them what type of affair is this going to be. Is it going to be a black tie affair? Is it going to be a more casual wedding? Like we've had garden weddings that were definitely more casual, or like I said, the beach weddings that are more casual. So, as a videographer, as a professional, when you are, interviewing these clients, being it online or by phone or in person, asking those questions. And a lot you can tell even by the venues they're using. Not always can you tell everything, but by asking all the questions and finding out what type of affair is it going to be and asking what do the groomsmen plan to wear, that's a big key to you knowing how you should dress then, and asking the bride, what is she most comfortable with.
Very important. I mean, I think that's what really happened here is maybe the communication barrier. Because I'm showing Exhibit B right now up on Ustream, and everybody he's standing right on the altar. Is that where videographers should be? In the white, bright shirt with the bright light.
Well, in a church that allows us to be up front, I will be at the altar area, but I will be on the side of the groomsmen. And so when they're in their black, tuxes, I'm in my black jacket, I just blend in with one of the guys. Now, if the videographer would have been behind the bridesmaids and not wearing a white shirt but a black shirt, he definitely wouldn't have stuck out as much. But more ideally, you get behind the guys. Typically, the guys are bigger. It's a little bit easier to hide behind, big men than it is to be, incognito around a bunch of women, especially, wearing a white shirt.
And being a man, and they're all in dresses. And also just from a videographer standpoint, you're going to get the bride's face from being over on the guy's side versus if you're on the girl's side, you're going to have the groom's face. So usually the bride's a little prettier and they really want her face a little more than the guy's if you only can have one camera at the front.
Right.
And I think a good general rule is, the only person on the altar area that should be in white should be the bride. I mean, she's the focus of attention, and, she should be the only one in white.
Shirley has a question about a videographer being on the altar and getting close to the bride.
Yes, I was wondering what the protocol is for dealing with a priest or a minister who's adamant about the fact that they just don't want you anywhere near the altar. You have the bride on the one hand who says, I want everything, and then you have the, priest or minister who really is refusing to let you near the bride.
I'm usually the one that handles that because I'm the one that attempts to shoot up front if the church allows it. And basically, whenever I go into a church or synagogue, a place of worship, I'm, entering there as a guest, and I want to abide by their rules and be respectful of their beliefs and their values. And, we do have some churches and Catholic cathedrals that, are very strict on where you may not be. And so, I don't want to come in there and, disrespect their place of worship and be disrespectful to their leadership. I may not necessarily agree with their rules, but, it's not my place, it's their place. And so, whenever you go someplace, you follow, their protocols and their rules. And so, when it's very clear that we cannot be up front, we don't push it. We don't try to sneak and do it anyway because we want to be very respectful because, we are a guest in their house of worship.
Right. Exactly.
I think very often, too, I will suggest to the bride, if the bride really insists upon us changing their rules, or breaking their rules, I have her go to the priest or the wedding coordinator there at the church and go to bat because she's paying to use that church. And so as her paying, she has a lot more pull than I do, just someone coming in to actually film her day.
And I also know that when you do show up to a church, dress professionally and handle yourself professionally. There's been times where we've been allowed to shoot up front just because as they were sizing us up, they could tell we were professionals and we were not going to cause a scene. Whereas when you do show up to a formal affair dressed more casually, their perception of you may be, well, this guy must not be very good. He doesn't look like he came prepared. He didn't come dressed appropriately for a wedding. So,
right. And I think that we've had a lot more favor in getting that position at the front because of that. And I think we also stress to the officiants that we're not there to be a distraction, that we're there to preserve the things that they're going to say and speak into the lives of that couple that day. And because of that, I just think they've been a lot more lenient with us at times. Not always, but a lot of cases, yes.
Dave has a question about keeping track of and handling family members the bride wants to be excluded from the video.
Yeah, I was wondering, I've encountered situations where each set of parents of the bride and groom are divorced, and then they have their significant others are people that one side of the family may not like. And some people want everyone photographed and other people want them excluded. What should you do in that case?
Who's paying the bill? I'm just saying it's who's paying the bill. And I think the couple have a lot to say. We're editing one right now that there is a divorce in the family, and one of the fathers that is of that divorce situation gave an extremely long toast. And the bride said, I don't want all of that toast. And, the bride and one of the other parents were paying the bill, and so I respect that, and that will hit the editing floor because of that. That is a tricky question, but I will say this. When I meet with the bride, I get the names of the parents, and that right there usually tells me if there's a divorce situation that we deal with. And if the last name is different, then I will usually ask, is there a divorce situation here, or kind of, give me the lowdown on the family, and I will, I will ask, does everyone get along? Because you want to know that going into it. I know one time Mark told this grandma and grandpa to get up close to each other like they liked each other, and they were divorced. And they said they had been for the last 20-some years.
I'm not hearing Mark's response on that one.
Well, what can you say? I mean, at least they were good sports about it. And he's like, well, we've been divorced a long time, but I'll stand close to her. I don't care.
And we have another question about editing video. How long does it take? How many changes to accept? Let's talk about editing etiquette.
I've read some posts on forums lately about this kind of thing, and, we rarely have changes requested to be made. I think I can think of one just more recently where, would you please take out the lady in the red dress? I really didn't want her there, but she was there on behalf of the groom's family, and the bride felt uncomfortable, but it was a very short little clip, and it was not a big deal. But really, we post a lot of our work online for the bride to preview. As we get portions done, we just post them online for them to preview. So we do a lot of online previewing. But even then, we're not changing a lot of stuff. I hear these videographers say, they get all these changes. I think it's very much in how you approach even giving it to them to preview or, to give them. I just make it be the latest, greatest, and usually they have such an excitement in viewing it. I'm not getting a lot of changes, but I've heard of videographers that did. We did some private consulting with a company that they had an option on their price list for the bride to come in and view it, and if she needed to make changes, and I recommended that he remove that from his price list because I said, you're only asking to be doing re-edits. But in the case that a bride would ask for a re-edit, I'm in a very firm belief, and we're in a price range, we are on a higher end, that we can't afford to make a change, and I prefer to keep a happy customer rather than a disgruntled, unhappy customer. I'd much rather my bride be happy because she's going to, I want her telling good things about us, because an unhappy customer talks a whole lot more than a happy customer. I mean, and so I think it's important to keep them happy, but there has to be a balance. And, I hear these videographers making all these changes and not charging any extra fees. If it's the mistake of the videographer, then I think you eat the cost. If it's the mistake of the bride, and she's like, oh, I forgot to tell you I wanted all of this part taken out or such and such, and it's after the fact, and she didn't communicate that ahead of time, then I think, it's very, good to, charge a fee, and don't be doing that for little or no money.
We have a question from Scott about the process of selling your wedding video production packages and handling pricing.
Hey, I wanted to ask specifically, how do you manage the bride and potentially mother-in-law or mother of the bride's expectations when you meet with them concerning the whole process of, the sales aspect, I guess I want to say. Do they come in for a package? Do you talk a la carte if they start asking for additional features? I mean, how do you handle that part of the process?
Typically a bride has seen us on the web, or, a lot of brides come in through our website, and they viewed the work there, and that's usually where they fall in love with the stuff. And then, our prices are not on our website for the purpose that if they were, we feel like probably most brides wouldn't even look at the work, because we are fairly high for our market. We're the highest. So in that respect, we really want to bait them and get them sucked in emotionally, and then them contact us. And I've been trying to, at this point, meet with more brides. I will give them a price list and send it to them by email. As far as we offer packages because, and I'll tell you why, we really, truly charge by the hour is how we charge, but it's disguised within a package. because all brides know to ask you is, can you send me your packages? And I just decided, we used to charge by the hour, and I would send this more a la carte type price list, and I thought, why not cater to what they're asking for, and we can do it by the hour, but put it in a package setting for them, and they're more comfortable with that, and that's what they're asking for, and I think it'll be more conducive, and it has been. They don't cringe at that hourly rate. Our hourly rate is $700 an hour for 2 cameras, and so, when you kind of tell them that, they're kind of like, they don't realize post-production is included in that. That's not just day of. There's post time in that. And we're not $700 for post, but it's $700 for the actual hours we're there on the wedding day.
Wow.
So if we're there for five hours, it's $3,500. And that includes, we've built in editing time in that as well. So, in that respect, I put that in a package because, when we were $400 an hour, $500 an hour, I could get away with the hourly rate. But when we went to 6 and 7, it just has worked better in a package, and they don't freak out over $700 an hour.
Well, and another thing that you do with your packages is you're flexible within, if they're wanting to take this element out of the package or add this element to it, all those things are flexible. I mean, the prices are set. Mm-hmm. But, if they're wanting something between package 1 and package 2, Tricia will tailor it to meet their needs versus just, them saying, well, I want package 2 at package 1's price. We don't negotiate off pricing, but we can add or take away from coverage to allow for their budget.
We don't add a lot of extras in our packages. They are they're buying us for time. Once they go up to the middle and upper package, they are getting either a wedding day edit or a highlight is going to come with it. But the bottom package is fairly, just 4 hours of time, 2 cameras on the wedding day. Mm-hmm. And so, and actually that comes in at $3,000 because we decided this year for Oklahoma we would just build in our traveling. And we're not billing for traveling in Oklahoma, or pretty much in a radius of 2 hours or so away from us. We can travel. It's already built into the price. So if we're shooting in Tulsa, it's real good because we're making a little more money. If we're shooting over a couple hours away, the travel times, the expense is already built in there.
So you're getting, back to this Bridezilla, you're getting what you pay for. I mean, this is, if you're going to charge $1,000, this kind of says a lot about your services. If you're charging the range that you're charging, this tells them too that, hey, you are a professional.
Very much so, yes. And, I have seen as we have moved up in our pricing how we have a lot less disgruntled brides or, or just brides in general. They realize they're hiring a professional and they're putting it in someone they can trust. And so they just let you do your job. And they trust you. And you have to have that as someone that, you're going to work for. If they don't trust you and they're second-guessing you all the time, I don't want that type of client.
Well, that does it for another edition of the DV Show podcast. Keep in mind, this podcast is powered by you, the listener. Video production is not for everyone. It can easily become overwhelming, time-consuming, intimidating, and technical when all you want to do is create a video that works for you. The options are daunting, and that's why we're here. Now, if you haven't visited our website this week, take a look. Always keep in touch with us at thedvshow.com. You can get in touch with us on social media like Twitter, Instagram, and of course, LinkedIn. And we will see you next week. Keep your questions coming in.
Video production just got easier. The DV Show.
Serious about creating better video? You're in the right place. Subscribe to our free online coaching service and expand your learning beyond our popular podcast.